call you?
It's okay. I'm sure it's all right.
Two phones together, and plus you guys, there it is.
Bill left it somewhere.
Okay, good morning. We're here for the Peace River, Manasota Regional Water Supply Authority's regularly scheduled meeting. I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call real quick. Commissioner DeSoto.
Here.
Commissioner Langford.
Here.
I believe we have Pat Shea from Manatee Utilities in place of Jason Bearden. Here. Welcome, Mr. Shea. And of course, we have all four of our commissioners present. If you're able, please stand. We'll be led in the invocation by Commissioner Langford. Remain standing and we'll do the pledge following.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today, Lord, and we just thank you for what you do for us, Lord. We thank you for us being able to be here today to make decisions to serve the people that we serve with this precious resource that you give us, dear Heavenly Father. And we just ask that you would help us all to have the knowledge to be good stewards of what we have. Dear Heavenly Father, we just ask that you would send us some rain and that we have a very inactive hurricane season with quite a bit of moisture to go along without the storms, Lord. We lift up our men and women that protect us and serve us, dear Heavenly Father, at home and abroad. We pray that you keep your hand of protection upon them as they do their best to protect us. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask all these things now in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're here in the DeSoto County Administration Building, and so welcome Greg Harris for some remarks from our host county today.
Good morning, Commissioners, authority staff, and guests. I'm Greg Harris, DeSoto County's Utilities Director, and on behalf of our own Commissioner Langford and our County Administrator Mandy Hines, I'd like to welcome you to DeSoto County, and I appreciate you being here. You know, it's a privilege to be a member of the Peace River, Manasota Regional Water Supply Authority, where we can consistently count on safe, reliable, and great tasting water for our county's customers. We commend the authority staff for its forward thinking and planning to ensure we'll have this valuable resource in the future, and we thank you for the oversight and the leadership that makes that happen. I believe this is the third year that we must apologize for the furious road construction going on throughout our county. While this is not a county-initiated project, we get to enjoy it every day. We do see progress, however, and one day it will be very, very nice. So I hope that you enjoy your visit to DeSoto County, and while you're here, have some lunch, buy some gas, because we need the money.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you for those comments. We're glad to be here. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, sir, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We move to public comments. Do we have anyone who's signed a card? Brian, so we have no public comments. So we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Move consent.
Motion? Excuse me.
Move
motion?
consent.
Motion by Commissioner Sale.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Langford. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor, aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. That moves forward unanimously. Moving on to our regular agenda. Item number 1, water supply conditions report.
I think it's showing.
Yeah.
Speaker notes.
Success.
Okay, great, thank you. Good morning, Katie Gilmore, your staff, here to give regular item number 1, our standing water supply conditions report. So today, first I'll go over our rainfall, river flow, withdrawals, and the storage conditions at the facility. Then a brief update on where we stand with our current drought conditions and response, and then go over our regional water supply deliveries for the month of April. Okay, so first up, the Upper Peace River Basin average monthly rainfall. This is for the last 2 years, and it goes through the end of April of 2026. So as you can see, we've continued to receive below average rain for the last few months. As this drought persists, there was an uptake in March and April, and that was beneficial. We'll get into that later. So as you can see, we approached our average during those months. And actually not shown here, but in May, we did receive 3.97 inches, which is pretty dry, but it's actually right at our historical average of 3.96. So looking ahead, we're hopeful for the rainfall that may come with El Nino, and looking forward to the rainy season starting here in the next, hopefully, few weeks. Up next is the historical monthly river flows. This is the last 2 years updated through May 17th, with the red line being our minimum flow required for withdrawal of 130 CFS, and the blue being our historical average monthly flow, and that green line is our actual monthly flow received. So as you can see here, we still remain very low on the river flows, but the rainfall that we received in March and April did increase the flows for those 2 months. Flows actually ended up at 165 and 215 CFS for those 2 months. So those were above, on average, the normal 130. The average flow did drop back down, though, however, in May, and on this graph, it's showing 43.9 CFS. And if you look towards the actual end of May, it stayed about the same, at about 47 CFS for the month of May. For river withdrawals, this is also for 2 years, updated through May 17th. So as a reminder, due to the current drought, we did receive an emergency order from SwiftMud. So that allowed us to pull up to 10 million gallons per day from the river at flows as low as 50 CFS, compared to our normal 130 CFS requirement. That order did expire on May 31st. We have requested an extension after talking with SwiftMud. We're waiting to hear back, but that would take it through October 1st. So currently it's expired, but we're hoping they reinstate it. The increase in flow due to the rainfall we received in March and April, along with that emergency order, did allow withdrawals in March and April, about 18.5 million gallons per day in March and 39.5 in April. And if you tally all of that together, since the emergency order was put into place, we were able to withdraw about 1.1 billion gallons from the river. About 852 million gallons was due to rainfall and 255 additional due to that emergency order. That equates to about 38 additional days of supply at the average we were putting out this summer. So having both the rainfall and the order has definitely helped us keep us in a better position throughout this drought than we could have been if we had not had both those things. However, through the end of May, as shown here, the river flow did drop back down. On this graph through May 17th, it's just showing we were only able to withdraw for 2 days in May, with the flows were above the 50 CFS. They did tick back up a little bit throughout the month through the end, but the water quality has not been good on the river. When flows get that low, we see tidal influence and we have higher salinity and conductivity, and we don't take that water in for treatment. So we have not withdrawn from the river since the 2nd of May, but we're hopeful here coming up soon. We finished the month of May averaging just 0.446 MGD just from those 2 days. Okay, up next is the surface water storage in the reservoir system. This is showing you 10 years worth of data updated through May 17th. So as reported in the last meeting, the ongoing drought resulted in a drop in our reservoir storage as less water has been available to pump from the river to the reservoirs. As of May 17th, shown here, there was a total of 3.58 billion gallons in the reservoir system. This value is obviously typically much lower than normal for this time of year. However, the measures we put into place over the last several months, reducing our demand and maximizing our source water supply, have allowed us to stay pretty steady, and we finished May at about the same place we were in March. So we held steady for those 2 months in our storage. Similar to February and April meetings, this graph has been expanded to 10 years worth of data from the typical 3 we normally show. So this shows you how we compare to the worst year in that recent history of 2017. So in this year, as of May 17th, we had about 800 million gallons more in the reservoir system than we did back in 2017. So we have continued to stay a little bit above that worst year over the last 10 years. So, of course, with the lack of rainfall in May and the minimum river withdrawals, we've been relying on the storage in the system again. So if you take a look at the end of this graph in May 17th through the end of May, currently we've dropped a little bit more. We're about 3.3 billion gallons right now in the reservoir system. Okay, if we look at our ASR system storage volume, this is also for 10 years through May 17th, with the blue line being our total volume stored in the ASR system and the orange line being the usable volume. As of May 17th, we had 6.4 billion gallons total, 4.0 billion gallons usable volume. And as of the beginning of this week, that's dropped a little bit. We're at 6.25 and 3.9 for those two numbers. Throughout the drought, we've relied on our ASR storage to supplement our raw water supply. We've been recovering from ASR since November. As reported last meeting, we were up to about our operational maximum of around 20 MGD for part of that time. We have started to decrease that pumping rate in preparation for the rains coming. And we have currently about 10 million gallons per day, and we'll probably start dropping that back down with the goal of turning off the ASR system once the rains start. So similar to the surface water storage graph, this shows an expanded 10-year time frame to capture the conditions of the 2017 drought. So as you can see, despite the amount of water we have recovered, and it's been a lot, we continue to have more water in the system than we did in 2017. And that's because we were keeping that system very full in anticipation for future droughts. So we did a good job having a lot of water in storage, so we continue to have a good volume in there, and more than we had during the last drought we encountered. Comparing the volume in May of each year, we have about 900 million gallons more than we did in 2017 at the same time. So if you look at the ASR and the surface water reservoir system, we had about 1.7 billion gallons more in storage this year than we did back in 2017 for May. You can roll all that up into our estimated days of supply. So this is also through May 17th. So 3.6 billion gallons of surface water and 4.0 billion gallons of usable ASR combines for 7.6 billion gallons of water. If you look at that, at our average annual use of 30 million gallons per day, it's about 252 days or 8.4 months. If you look at that in terms of the master water supply contract allocated quantity of 34.7, it's 218 days or a little over 7 months of supply. So despite holding steady on the reservoir since March, of course, this amount has decreased because we continue to pump water out of the ASR system. And if we update these numbers through the end of the May, we're about 10 days lower than we were on this graph. So overall, we do feel we've been able to manage the drought to minimize the effects where possible. As we get ready to enter our rainy season, we're going to shift our focus, and we'll be refilling both the reservoirs and the ASR system to be prepared for the future. Okay, so just briefly kind of give you an update on where we are in the drought condition. So this is, of course, is the drought condition map put out by the state of the U.S. in May 12th. And so the drought continued to intensify across the state over the last few months. The entire state of Florida remains in a drought. The majority is still in the extreme drought classification. The amount of state classified as exceptional drought increased since the April meeting, but our region stayed essentially the same, as you can see here. And of course, they expect these conditions to slowly improve as the rainy season begins. It's going to take a while and quite a bit of rain to kind of get back to normal. All right, and then also I'd like to provide a quick summary on where we are in our drought response and management, kind of a follow-up to what we talked about in April's meeting. So currently, while we're still dry, we are starting to curtail some of the extra measures that we have been taking as we approach the rainy season. And note, as of this week, there's a little bit more information than I had on just these bullet points. SwiftMud's Phase 3 water shortage order went into effect on April 3rd and does remain in effect till July 1st. However, it is conversations with SwiftMud's believe that might be extended through October 1st. They're going to vote on that on their June 23rd meeting because the hydrologic conditions and the water supply in the region is still quite low, and so they want to extend that order a few more months to give it a chance to catch up. The emergency order that we had that's been so beneficial to allow us to pump, as I mentioned, did expire on May 31st, but we have a request. The request is to extend that to October 1st, so we'd be in line with the SwiftMud's water shortage order. We believe this will be granted. We haven't got the official word yet. Until that is, we can't pump unless our water is above 130 CFS, our flow on the river. And then, of course, the other emergency order was the one on Shell Creek. That does remain in effect to July 1st. Punta Gorda has also requested an extension on this order till October 1st, and we're still waiting to hear back on that as well. This was the order that allowed Punta Gorda to pump more surface water that they could then treat and supply to the region when available. They were doing that, and they're still able to through July 1st. However, we've kind of cut that back, and we're back to an even swap with them. And we're going to actually start providing them with more water over the next few months to get back to our normal, get the accounting back to normal. So we're essentially even with them, as we normally are, as we swap water for water quality reasons throughout the year. Okay. And then, oh, I'm sorry. And then also on that slide, we've been reducing our recovery volumes in the ASR, as I mentioned, and we'll continue to do that. And then we'll turn it off, and then we'll start recharge mode to refill the system once we have additional water available. All right, so now shifting over to the total regional water production and use for April. And so our table shows the authority member customer water supply capacity and production for the month. And in April, we delivered about 30.57 million gallons in the region. Our members and customers together delivered 63.43, which gives a total regional production of 94 million gallons per day. Of that total, 3.67 was delivered by Manatee County to their non-authority wholesale customers in Longboat Key, Palmetto, and Bradenton. So that gives the total demand for the authority members and customers of 90.36, and that's about 84% of the total capacity, which is around 107. I'm walking through each of the members and customers now, starting with Charlotte County. In April, Charlotte purchased 14.75 million gallons per day from the authority and self-supplied 0.95 million gallons per day from the burnt store facility. That gives them a total use of 15.7, and that's about 81% of their total capacity. For DeSoto County, they purchased 0.68 million gallons per day from the authority and self-supplied 0.36, and that gives them a total use just over 1 million gallons per day, or 66% of their total capacity. Of course, Manatee County does not purchase any water from the authority, so this slide shows what they produced. They produced a total of 49.8 million gallons per day from their water supply facilities, with 43.68 of that going to serve their retail customers, 3.67 for their wholesale customers that are not authority members, and the additional 2.45 million gallons per day to supply to Sarasota County through their contract. Overall, they used about 94% of their total permitted capacity. Okay, so for Sarasota, of course, Sarasota dropped back a little bit from us over the last few months and increased production from their Carlton facility, and that was to help out with the drought management and response. So they're still kind of doing that. So they only purchased 13.23 million gallons per day in April, and they produced 9.26 from the Carlton facility. They imported 2.46, giving them a total use of just under 25 million gallons per day, and that's about 87% of their total countywide available capacity. And on the last two slides, you can note on Sarasota and Manatee, their contract did step down one more time. So currently, contractually, Manatee County can supply up to 3 million gallons per day as of April 1st to Sarasota County. That dropped down from 4. And then the city of Northport produced 1.91 million gallons per day, purchased 1.91 million gallons per day from the authority in April. Self-supplied 3.1 from their facilities at Macahatchee Creek and Welland Park. They exchanged about 0.01, and that gives them a total use right at 5 million gallons per day. Overall, they're using about 61% of their capacity. All right, so the average annual regional use of the last 10 water years, 2016 through 2025, as well as the running 12-month average to date is shown here. This is all regional deliveries to members and customers as well as non-customers. So as of April, our running 12-month average was 90.65 million gallons per day. And that gives us an overall usage of about 84% of the available capacity in the region. And then finally, the breakdown of our regional demand from authority members and customers during April. So again, that total use was right about 94 million gallons per day, or 88% utilization, leaving a little over 13 million gallons per day, or 12% of the regional capacity. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
All right, any questions, Katie? Any comments? Seeing none, quick question. So, Mr. Langford prayed that we'd get some great storms. We know hurricane consequences, which is great. If we have a great season, we get a lot of rain, will we be able to fully recharge the ASR in our reservoirs?
I haven't quite done the calculation on the ASR. The ASR requires us to operate the plant at higher capacity. So we have to actually treat that water because the finished water is stored underground. So that'll be more tied to the demands in the system and what additional capacity we have. All 4 of our plants are up and running. We're not doing any rehab projects or anything this summer, so we can run at a higher capacity. I don't have a calculation on how quickly that can happen. Probably not up to the 9 billion this year. On the river to reservoirs, I was looking at that. We could, once we get good flows, fill up in a couple of months. You know, if we can pump kind of towards our higher capacity, not at our maximum. If we pump at our maximum, we'd be faster.
We could fill that in a couple of months.
Yeah, we're about halfway down right now, so we can pump up to 120 million gallons per day. We typically do more like 60 to 80 when we have a lot of flow, and so we're only taking out about 30. It'll be more though if we're taking out more to treat for the ASR, so you have to kind of factor all that in. But we can definitely, throughout this rainy season, we have a normal rainy season, we can get that reservoir back to full.
Well, it's, for me, I'm thinking about this, what a great job you guys have done, making sure they were supposed to be coming into the drought like it is, and we still have 8 months of water. We can get a drop of rain, which is really, really encouraging.
Yes.
Because I think we're going to start getting some good rain here. pretty
Hopefully,
soon.
yeah, we thought it'd happen this week, but it didn't show up, so.
It's trying. It's going to come.
Yeah.
But thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anything further? Thank you for that report. All right, moving on to regular agenda item number 2, 5-year capital improvement plan and 20-year capital needs assessment. And Mr. Knowles, welcome.
Hey, good morning. Mike Knowles with Authority Staff, presenting regular agenda item number 2. This is the 5-year capital improvement plan and 20-year capital needs assessment. There will be a motion for consideration at the conclusion of this presentation to accept the capital program into the fiscal year 27 budget. I'll be doing a recap of the overview of the 5-year CIP and 20-year CNA budgets, highlight some of our key projects and provide an update to those, and then address any questions before going to the motion. So we have a total of 18 projects in our capital needs and CIP projects program, 6 of which are regional transmission main projects. 4 of those are within our 5-year CIP. Then we have 6 water supply projects, 3 of which are in our 5-year CIP, and then 6 system-wide benefit projects, 2 of which are in the 5-year window. Of our total $693 million budget for the 5-year CIP, $10 million of that is for system-wide benefit projects. $20 million is towards the remainder of our transmission main projects, mostly under construction. And then the bulk of it, $664 million, is for our water supply project, the surface water supply expansion project. You can see in the spending broken down over the next 5 fiscal years, the majority of the spending is over the next 2 fiscal years. And all of the cooperative funding and grants that we've received, district, state, federal, those are all anticipated to be spent in the next fiscal year, totaling $76 million. Looking at our 20-year CNA of $1.188 billion, $25 million of that is for system-wide benefit projects, $232 million of that is for water transmission main projects, and the bulk of it, $932 million, is for water supply projects. So again, looking at the spending per fiscal year, about 60% of that budget is over the next 5 fiscal years. And then there's a slight uptick starting in fiscal year 2033, coinciding with our next water supply project, which is potentially the brackish RO. So how we got here today is the draft capital program was presented to your professional staff at both the March and the May pro staff meetings. The draft was also presented at the April board meeting, and we've incorporated those comments into the final capital program that's in your books today. And I'll point out the one change that was made between the draft and the final when we get to that point. So our key projects in the 5-year CIP, we have 4 transmission main projects, the first of which is the 2B pipeline project. It's funded through a Charlotte County interlocal agreement. It's approximately 13 miles of 42-inch diameter pipe serving growing demands in western Charlotte County. And to date, we have just over 11 miles of that pipe installed. We are still waiting for a Army Corps 404 permit, but we are told we are really close to completion of that permit, and that just has to go to legal review. So while contractually, our contractor has until July 27th, they're really just on hold for that river crossing until the permit is issued. So we feel that that pipeline project is going to be completed well before next summer. There is still some work going on in residential areas of Charlotte County, but the bulk of the work remaining is in the Myakka State Forest easement and also this river crossing. This is a picture of the Myakka River on the north side in the Sarasota County Myakka Island Point Preserve, facing south towards our easement in the Myakka State Forest. Another pipeline project is the Phase 3C pipeline project for Sarasota County. It's approximately 8 miles of 42-inch diameter pipe serving growing demands in northeast Sarasota County. As the board is likely aware, this pipeline has been in service since last summer. It's delivering water to Sarasota County. The remainder of that project is for storage and pumping improvements at the Phase 3A location for the authority, which is co-located with the Carlton Water Treatment Plant for Sarasota County. We do have all of our permits and easements for that project. We have installed the fill and drain pipes for that future tank, and as soon as we get our FP&L is going to move some power poles, and then we'll begin to start construction on that 5 million gallon storage tank. The last two transmission main projects are both within the feasibility study and routing portion of those projects. The first of which is the 3C extension pipeline. That would take our transmission main system from the terminus of the 3C pipeline at Fruitville and Lorraine further north to connect into the transmission system of Manatee County. And we are very close to completing that study. I believe within the calendar year we should be presenting that study to the board. The other feasibility and routing study is for the Phase 2C pipeline, which takes the pipeline from the terminus of the 2B at the Charlotte County Gulf Coast Booster Station west and then northwest to Sarasota County's Venice Gardens Water Treatment Plant. And that study will also look at potential connections to other utilities along the way, possibly the city of Northport or Inglewood Water District. Our two system-wide benefit projects, the first is the Water Resources Construction Department building. It's projected to be a 5,000 square foot building that will replace the 60-plus-year-old water resource building that we refer to as the Ranch House. And the other one is represents the only change we made between the draft and final versions of the capital program, and that is for the Kings Highway widening project in DeSoto County. There's originally a PID study done for a 2-mile stretch from the county line northeast to look at widening that road. The first 1.1 miles of that is taking place starting construction next year, and the authority's 24-inch diameter transmission main is in conflict with the drainage structures on that project. So we've been looking to relocate that 24-inch, but also going to recommend to participate in a UWHCA, Utility Work by Highway Contractor Agreement with DOT, where the roadway contractor not only builds the road, but they install the utility as well. So there's some cost savings there because they already handle the maintenance of traffic and several other aspects of the project and then install the utility. Doing that approach, though, we have to deposit the entire amount of construction funds into an escrow in year 1, which would be fiscal year 27 for us. So in the last plan, that budget was spread out over several years. Now it's shown just in fiscal year 27. Our water supply project, starting with a surface water supply expansion project, is really two projects. First of which is the PR3, Peace River Regional Reservoir number 3, and that is the 9 billion gallon reservoir, the 84-inch diameter pipe that will fill it, a 80 MGD reservoir pump station, and a 258 MGD river intake pump station. That is coupled with our PRF expansion, which is a 24 MGD conventional surface water treatment plant. Those two projects coupled together between the storage and the treatment yield 18 MGD of annual average demand, which meets our contractual requirements from the master water supply contract. And then the new project this year for our capital program is Flatford Swamp. It's a Southwest Florida Water Management District project. It's been talked about for decades. It's actually in a pilot study, but this is the first time that the authorities looked at this project. Then we have the Brackish RO facility, and that would be a new 8 MGD annual average daily yield Brackish project. So first with Flatford Swamp, the Water Management District has currently completed a pilot study looking at recharging the aquifer, and we're proposing a feasibility study to take the data from that and then look at potential withdrawals, potential water supply permits that could be done through this project, through the recharge process. And once that study advances, we'd be meeting with our members and customers for interest and participation on that project. Then we have the PRF expansion. Shown here is about 70,000 cubic yards of preloading where the new plant is going. And back in February, we were done pre-loading the site. And we installed a time-lapse trail camera out there so we can just watch the progress and do a time-lapse at the end of this. But then in March, they were about halfway done floating the preloading. And then by April, the site was cleared and they were installing pipe underneath the future filter. And today we have a tower crane installed in the center of the project that can reach the entire site limits. And you can see they're prepping for the pouring of the concrete. They're currently putting down the rebar, matting, and everything for that future filter bay. Then for the PR3, it's got several components. So this is the reservoir pump station. They are currently driving sheet pile to form the base of that pump station at the southern wall. And we have a direct purchase of the vertical and turbine pumps that are on the way for that project. We've also cleared the trail for the 84-inch diameter pipe. That pipe is actually expected to start rolling into our site next week. And then our contractor performing the Reservoir 3 construction has completed installation. They're using the trailers out there. There's even trailers for the authority staff and for our engineer of record. But they've also completed the QA lab for doing on-site testing for materials. And they're currently clearing and building the interior road of the reservoir. And last, we have our brackish RO water treatment plant. That's currently at a preliminary design stage. It was stopped at that level, but it also has the water use permits associated with the brackish well field. So that is the next water supply project that's ready to go. If a utility were to request that or a member, it would just have to go from preliminary design to final design construction, but the permits are in place for that project. Again, that's an 8 MGD annual average yield. And with that, I'd like to entertain any questions the board has.
All right, any comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 5-year capital improvement plan and the 20-year capital needs assessment for 2027 through 2046.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Langford, second by Commissioner DeSoto. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, aye?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That moves forward unanimously. Thank you. And just, if you will remind me, when are we having the ribbon cutting on the third?
I think you had me put it in the calendar for November of 29.
Mr. Knowles, do you like your job?
I do like my job.
We'll bring you back, Mr. Chair.
You got your years mixed up on that.
Do I?
I'm listening.
Oh, sorry, November 25th.
28.
28. Jeez. Sorry. We approved it in 25.
Funny this late.
25, you missed that.
I'm sorry, could you clarify one more time?
Sure. In December of 2025, we approved it. It's a 3-year contract. So, yeah, you had talked about November of 2028.
28, yes.
Yes, sorry about that.
Haven't worded that wrong.
I think you had my work there for a minute.
Thanks for the update.
Sorry. Thank you.
All right, moving on to regular agenda item number 3, 2026 legislative session review. And we have Laura Donaldson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know about you guys, already seem a little feisty after that last Q&A. Going into my presentation should be fun. I know we all have a hot topic that really doesn't directly impact the authority, but I will talk about it. It's listed under failed legislation, but I know you are all well aware of what the legislature did this week. So just real quickly, sorry, I just got back in town last night, and it's like 7 o'clock in my head, not in the morning. Okay, so 2026 in review. Last fall, when I gave you this presentation, I talked about that the leadership really did not get along well. That did continue this session. Speaker Perez just got announced that Donald Trump is appointing him as ambassador to Brazil. That just came out this week. And then Senator Albritton, President Albritton, he still has 2 years left on his term. We're assuming he's going to stay in office. I know past President Pasadomo from Collier County stayed in office after she was no longer Senate President for 2 years. And as you're all aware, Governor DeSantis, we're in a new election for governor this November. Okay, so the 2026 legislature, I don't know, how many of you had the opportunity to go to Tallahassee this session? It was a fun place to be in Tallahassee this session. A lot of things were not moving because it was an early session. All of a sudden, nothing was moving, and then things were moving. So, like last year, the budget was not done on time. Constitutionally, that's the only bill that the legislature has to pass, is the budget. And that was not done. And so we just finished that special session last Friday, a week ago, was that one. Out of the 1,896 bills filed, only 237 bills passed. This is one of the lowest number of bills actually passed in several years. The governor has signed, I was sitting there updating these numbers. The governor has now approved 122 bills. And there's 17 bills that are pending at the governor's office right now. Most of those are local bills. And then there's 3 claims bills. And so we have about 98 bills that are waiting. I've listed the special session. You guys, I'm sure I am a lawyer for Florida Association of Special Districts, as well as one of their lobbyists. I know what we were sending to our members. I'm sure you are all well aware that we just finished the budget session as well as the property tax reform session, which was ended on Tuesday. So major issues, rural renaissance, this was a priority. I know Commissioner Lanford, you've heard a lot about this was a priority for President Albritton. He was not successful in getting this passed. The House just had no interest in getting it done. Property tax reform, budget growth management was a big issue. For those of you who have areas that are undeveloped, the rural renaissance bill will come back. It is, think DRI on crack, huge developments, very limited time for local governments to review the plans, and they're 50-year plans and can be extended to 75 years. So that bill will come back. Data centers, AI Bill of Rights, that was actually a special session. With that, healthcare affordability, use of emergency funds. The legislature did not like that the governor spent a lot of funds that should have been used for hurricanes on some non-hurricane related activities, including alligator Alcatraz. Utility services, this is a big issue for basically forcing cities to provide utility services outside their boundaries. And vaccine, so these are the big issues. The budget, when I put this together, we had not had a budget special session. We now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. You said something with growth management, it was like something on crack?
Yeah.
I thought you said the legislators are on crack. Is that what you said?
I would say that I would not, my friends who are legislators did not enjoy this session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can you go back to that next slide for the previous slide?
Yes.
So which of these bills passed and which didn't? Can you clarify that for us?
So the property tax reform has now passed in the special session. The governor has not been presented to the governor yet. There's a lot of growth management bills passed, but the big ones did not pass. Senator McClain these bills will be back. In fact, for growth management, there is going to be an overhaul of growth management that's going to be filed for next year. They're looking at completely changing Chapter 163. And it's going to be all encompassing. It's going to include impact fees. So I was involved with growth management. I'm going to age myself. A couple of decades ago when we did the first big rewrite. It's been rewritten once again. One point, like 10 years later, it's going to be rewritten again. Data centers, that passed. And I'll talk about one of the data center bills. The AI Bill of Rights did not pass. That was a special session initiative of the governor. The House said no. Healthcare affordability, nothing happened. Use of emergency funds, they have put a little bit of restrictions on the governor, but not a lot. I always I always say we have to be careful when we give powers to whether it's the governor or agency heads, because it's great when you have a great person in place. It's not great when it's changed. For example, when we had former Congressman Adam Putnam at FDAX, the legislature gave tons of power to him. And then when we got the next ag commissioner, the legislature said, oh wait, this is not what we wanted to do. We don't want Nikki Free to have all this authority. Now we're going to take all that power back. So the legislature's trying to balance that. Universal E-Verify, that did not pass. Any of you, for example, Doug Manson's contract with the authority, any contracts that your counties have with a vendor, we are required to do E-Verify. That is not the case for private companies unless you have more than 25 employees, so that did not pass. Vaccine mandates, that is, that's the kids' vaccines, and that did not pass. The House refused to take that up at special session. Medical malpractice did not pass, and the state IT overhaul did not pass. That will be back. And there are some IT issues that will impact the authority as well as your individual counties. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
One
Okay.
question.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the growth management, I remember hearing something about a blue ribbon project.
Yes.
That failed as well, or is that coming back?
So it will come back. I don't know how it's going to look. It generally takes 2 to 3 years to pass substantial legislation in Florida. I do believe that's going to come back, and it's a weird bill. One of the things it says that you have to have water available. 75% of the state of Florida does not have available water, like we're in water use caution areas. So it's an interesting bill, but it's if you're interested, the backstory is there is an investor, I believe he's Canadian, who's been buying big swaths of area in North Florida, and then there's some in other areas, and they want to basically come in, entitle, and then flip the property with little say by local governments.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Chair, I look at projects like that, and we're starting to really start to understand what Live Local is all about for those counties that have applicants coming in to test that. But we look at home rule and the deterioration of things that have been going on over the last several years. I mean, it's going to come to a point that there is no more home rule. Now, I'm just going to say that at 50,000 feet and keep it in general terms. But when you look at things like this in this last session, it's going to be very difficult, and I think local folks need to understand what's going on here. That start paying attention to what's coming out of Tallahassee, because it will impact how your local government can respond to you and your concerns, especially on local land use stuff. That we're going to have our hands tied, and it's going to have to be, well, you're going to have to speak to somebody up in Tallahassee if you have an issue. So pay attention.
Yeah, and with that, I will say, like Senate Bill 280, which was the glitch bill for Senate Bill 180, after the hurricane, that did not fail. Like, I think that's going to come back. There is a recognition that that bill went too far, and because there's really not a lot. But Senator McClain has already told me we are coming back, and I just said, can I make sure, please let me be at the table. I've been part of the table on the water side for years whenever we've done growth management, because people are starting to pay attention. In fact, I was talking to Doug earlier. I'm for the first time, and I think it's probably been 15 years, I'm actually speaking to the home builders at their annual meeting on a water issue, on water. Like, they are now recognizing what's happening in Tallahassee can impact how they can develop in Florida because of water.
Just follow up, Mr. Chair. Sure. Thank you. You mentioned something about impact fees in a future bill. What exactly is that they're contemplating on impact fees?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I've been very informal. Do you want me to go through the chair, or are we good with me?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
That's on the growth management issue.
Yeah, sorry. I really have a travel hangover today. So every year we've been dealing with impact fees in Tallahassee. 2 years ago, we passed a bill that dealt with impact fees and the ability to deem extraordinary circumstances to override the 4-year phase-in. I recommend it to my clients, and many other local governments did it. We made sure our increases got implemented before the law took effect, right? I mean, that's how you can play the game. A bill passed this year on impact fees that now, and it's weird because the law doesn't take effect until the end of the year, but as it relates to the impact fees, it takes effect in July. Like, it's kind of a retroactive, and it's going to limit how you can do extraordinary and what you have to do related to the adoption of impact fees. I will say, so this will be part of the growth management rewrite. There's a push to get rid of them completely. There's a push that...
To get rid of impact fees completely?
Yes.
Okay.
There is a push, and that will include utility connection fees, which are exempt from the impact fee statute right now. There is a potential, I've heard the discussion that whatever developer pays in impact fees, basically they get a credit towards property taxes. Now, this was before the property tax reform, so we don't really know how all of this is going to play out. But not only is and I have on my notes, not only is this impact fee specifically going to get addressed this session, they're also going to get addressed in 2027. We have the every 20 years Tax and Budget Reform Commission, and that starts next November. And their goal is to put things on the ballot in 2028. And so they too, there's going to be a push if they can't get it done legislatively to deal with this issue of fees.
Can you repeat the utility part of that, the utility connection fees?
So in law, there are very specific requirements on how you levy impact fees, and there's a 4-year phase-in schedule on how much you can go over. And then there is a safeguard on extraordinary, so you can say you're going to go up 200%. There is a statement that says utility connection fees are exempt from that requirement, from those requirements. There is a concern that utilities are charging very large connection fees, and so I believe there's going to be, well, I've been told there's going to be a push to eliminate that exemption from that statute for utility connection fees.
Because connection fees are outside the impact fee. It's a separate fee by the utility to its customer.
So the reason why it's in statute is because every utility calls it different things. So some utilities, a true connection fee is an impact fee. They just call it connection fee.
Right.
Other utilities, connection fee is actually connecting a house to the system. And so we just did a blanket exemption. But for some utilities, a connection fee truly is an impact fee. You still have to meet the laws related to the impact, case law related to the impact fees, but you don't have to meet like the extraordinary. You can raise them how you can raise them.
So we're going to have to look at the legal definition of connection fee and how it's defined by the statutes.
So it's not defined by statute. It's basically your lawyer is going to make a determination on whether it's exempt or not.
Yeah, the only, I want to keep it germane to water authority stuff, but that can have an impact on new hookups and things like that. If you're starting to waive those kind of fees or something, I mean, it could have devastating impacts on the utility itself to cover its costs.
Yes, the cost of water, as you've just seen, continues to go up.
Yeah, and that's one way to recover certain things anyway.
Right.
Certainly. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
The upside is you have a lawyer who's your lobbyist who deals with water issues, and so I get to have the opportunity to bring that perspective when we have those conversations. Okay, so budget. Yay, we have a budget. It's not been presented to the governor yet. The final budget was $114.5 billion, which is $500 million less than last year's budget. The environmental budget, $2.46 billion went to DEP. Out of that, $638.6 million went to the Everglades. And then $584.4 million went to water quality. So those are issues. And then there was a $150 million tax package as part of that. For the authority, we had 2 budget appropriations that did get funded. has not been sent to the governor. The governor has said he's going to be vetoing projects. This is like his last ability to make a statement. And it's not just this governor. Governors historically like to veto a lot in their last session because they can say, look how much money I saved. So this is not specific to this governor. This is a historic comment. So the authority had asked for $7 million, which was 5% of the surface water expansion project. We were successfully able to get $3.5 million in the budget, in the final budget. So if you see incoming President Boyd or Representative Buchanan, please thank them. There were not a lot, I mean, the water projects were smaller, in my opinion, than what they've been in the past. In addition, we were able to get $1.5 million included for the pipeline project, and it's actually 2 pipeline projects. It's part of Phase 2B, which it benefits Charlotte and Northport, and then Phase 3C, which benefits Sarasota County. So those are currently in the budget. I do not know when the legislature is going to send the budget to the governor and start the clock. So, but no matter what, we have to have the budget in place before June 30th because their fiscal year starts July 1. It's good news for us before I move on that Boyd is the incoming Senate President. The way it works, as you're up in leadership, you get a certain pot of money and you get a divvy out. I mean, they don't want to talk about it, but that's really what happens. So it is very beneficial that we have Boyd, who's going to be the Senate President, and then I know Representative Buchanan is running for the Senate seat. So that will be helpful, as well as if President Albritton stays in for his last 2 years, that will help. They've been great partners with us over the years and very open to meeting with us and funding your needs. I will say it was very interesting with projects this year because the Senate in particular took a position. We had to justify why state funds should be used and not local funds. They wanted to know what was the benefit statewide. They also were looking at whether or not if a county was suing on Senate Bill 180, they were looking at those things. I had to spend a lot of time talking to members that the authority is not, like, yes, we're made up of the 4 counties, but we are a separate governmental entity because that was something that they were researching. It's all about politics. Appropriations are always about politics, but this year even more so. Okay, so I'm going to go through these really quickly because there's so many bills. I try to pick ones that impact the authority. Most of the bills that impact the authority have nothing to do with water. They're more government related. So DEP, I put this one on because what's interesting in Florida, our water bodies have numeric nutrient criteria on them, right? We have water quality standards that can't be violated. The Environmental Regulation Commission had to approve those. That has now been dissolved. So we kind of had like I don't know, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, a safeguard related to those new standards, and that has been eliminated. Stormwater treatment, last year the state implemented expansive new stormwater rules. It's much more expensive to do these stormwater ponds. The authority is going to be dealing with stormwater related to the reservoir expansion. Everyone has stormwater issues. This effectively helps you buy stormwater and water quality credits somewhere else. Think about mitigation bank, but for stormwater. Conservation lands, I included this because if you read the paper, there's been some very controversial potential proposed land deals with DEP and water management districts. There are new standards related on how that happens. So this will be if Swiftmud had a piece of property that the authority wanted to use and we didn't already have the right, we'd have to go through this process. Data centers, I included this because the authority, right, we technically don't provide water to data centers. But this bill effectively requires water management districts from issuing data center water use permits and then through a process. Most of the requirements are current law. When you go through water use permitting, it's currently there. They've added some new ones. What's interesting and why I included this is the authority would never know, unless they read it in the newspaper, if a data center was being approved by one of your local governments. But having said that, SwiftMud has taken a position that there's some issues related to that. But I just wanted to throw that out because the data centers is a really hot issue. This will continue to be a very big issue in Florida related to water use. The cybersecurity, having tried to get into certain websites when I was on vacation, many governments actually put firewalls up so you can't get in because there's such an abuse of cybersecurity and ransomware, although local governments can't, you can't pay ransomware, it's against the law now. But the legislature passed a bill that's going to help streamline. So if you needed to have a conversation similar when we have conversations about emergency measures at the authority that are exempt from public records or public sunshine law meetings, they are now focusing some of that on the cybersecurity stuff. You do not want people to know how to get into your system. So they've streamlined it, they've made it much more intense. In addition, and this now has been sent to the governor, there is going to be a local government cybersecurity grant program. That has become law. The governor signed that. So this will be very exciting. You can also buy off the state contracts instead of having to procure it yourself. Hopefully that will lead to cost savings for local governments because it will be more bang for your buck. Claims against government, this does directly impact the authority as well as all of you. Sovereign immunity limits are going up. It's taken 3 years to get this passed. This has not been sent to the governor yet, but we do suspect this will get signed. This will cost all local governments more money related to insurance because you're just on the hook more. This is an interesting faster state payments for rural special district projects. So technically, this is not for the authority, but the authority can, I believe it applies to the authority because of DeSoto County. But this bill effectively right now, when the authority gets money, gets a grant from the state, we have to spend the money first and then get reimbursed. This is effectively the state directly pays. And so, because you may not have $200 million that you can pay and get reimbursed. And so it is going to be very beneficial. It was actually put into place for the WSSA, I say it wrong because that's not the way, that's a river, it's like water and wastewater cooperative, where they're building for 2,000 people. It's a $190 million project. It is quite an interesting project up in the crook of the state. Foreign influence, hopefully none of you are asking any foreign country of concern to give you something. This basically prohibits that. And there's also some restrictions related to technology. The legislature continues every year to put more restrictions on what we have to include in contracts. This one, the prohibited government policies on greenhouse, this actually does impact special districts, but it does not impact the authority. But I did want to just let you know that they were basically trying to make sure that governments are not joining organizations or implementing policies that deal with greenhouse gas emissions. That sounds like okay, but like we had to look at it on behalf of the special districts for Babcock Branch, right? They have like solar policies that they put in place, same thing with the Reedy Creek. Okay. SwiftMud confirmations, they all got appointed. SwiftMud is fully 13 members. And which is good because 2 of these members are on. There was not, I do not believe there was a single water management district appointee that was not confirmed this year, which is not normal. Okay, so failed legislation. I put property tax. I will briefly talk about this because this will ultimately impact the authority. So the legislature passed the joint resolution to increase property tax homestead exemptions starting next fiscal year, so 2027, 2028, from 150, or from the current 50 to 150, excluding school district levies. And then the following year, it goes up to 250. It also is CPI'd. So it's not just a straight 250, it is CPI. That is what is in the joint resolution that will go before the voters in November. There's an implementing bill that deals with ad valorem as well as the referendum. There was also language that deals with core services that does not impact SwiftMud, because SwiftMud special districts were exempt from the definition or the list of core services that you can spend ad valorem on, because the theory is all your special districts, they're all focused on, they're pretty much all single purpose, right? It's all public safety. There's nothing else in there. So that will all be happening in November. If they pass, if the resolution passes, there will be an implementing bill next session, a bigger implementing bill on how does this really impact fiscally constrained counties. There was a piece on fiscally constrained. I believe there's going to be more on that. There's also discussion, they're going to include a revenue cap for all local governments, because the resolution doesn't prohibit a government from increasing their revenues by finding other sources, whether it be increasing your millage rate if you have that authority, whether it's increasing your fees, whether it's adopting and levying non-ad valorem assessments. So that will be something that comes back this spring.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner DeSoto.
Thank you, sir. Question on the commercial and non-homesteaded property. I also understand that it included reducing the cap from 10 to 5%. I think that got in the joint resolution.
The assessed value.
Yeah, the assessed value, I'm
Yes.
sorry. The assessed value, which is very impactful if you have a commercial base and you've programmed in, certain, caps. But I also understand they put some type of language in there on what the statutes currently allow for maximum millage rate. Can you explain that? Because I think they've handcuffed that as well.
So currently, you have different voting requirements based on your rollback rate and how much you go over your rollback rate every year. And so what the legislature did is they basically took where it's just a majority vote, right? There's that first level. There's one level it's majority, and then one level that's unanimous if you go over a certain percent of your maximum millage rate. So what the legislature did is they've redefined what is the maximum millage rate to be your rollback rate. So effectively it means, in my opinion, that everyone's going to have to do unanimous votes effectively if you're going to go above the rollback rate.
Okay.
Unless it's a small increase, but I think that that's where that's going to be, because they do recognize, there's a recognition that this, and I'm going to just give an example, it doesn't work if you're at your maximum millage rate, but let's say you're at a 3, like there are governments that have low millage rates, you're at a 3, so you technically can go to a 10. There's nothing that prohibits the government from saying, okay, well that's great. You guys are exempt, you have a higher homestead, so we're just going to increase our millage rate and you're going to end up having the same amount of revenues. There's currently, now, that's going to change next session. They're going to try to fix that. But currently, that's how it's going to operate. And so the way to help avoid that is to require higher voting standards related to what you can do.
And on the 5, you have to be a homesteaded property for 5 years to get the benefit.
Yes.
Do you have to be in the same residence for 5 years, or just be a Florida homesteaded homeowner that maybe you moved, you're here for 10 years, you moved into a new house, and you homesteaded that? So you've had a homesteaded property for more than 5 years, it's just not in the same residence. That's a little tricky. I'm trying to figure out how that would apply to people who maybe moved here, let's say 3 years ago. Does that count, and then another 2 years they're eligible? And I'm getting off the water topic. I am, Mr. Chair. I guess if you can give me 30 seconds, I will keep this moving.
I will say there's a lot of questions. My reading of it is, Florida residency is different than homestead. We have a lot of Florida residents who don't own property in Florida. So it is based on if if you buy a property before January 1, 2027, it doesn't really matter. Like if you were a snowbird and you wanted to claim residency, you're going to qualify as long as you make that transition, you get your voter card before December 31st. I think it's going to be tied to, can you show, are you a Florida resident? And we are waiting in the next implementing bill, which will be in 2027. What does that actually mean? There's a lot of questions about the legality and whether or not it violates U.S. constitutional equal protection clause, as well as some other things. It's been struck down federally in some places. So we don't really know, and obviously that will have a big impact on the true impact of what the joint resolution impact will be. The legislature did not have the estimating revenue conference about what the impacts of this bill would be.
Thank you for the latitude, Mr. Chair.
And I will say, because I know a lot of people are upset with their members, they were in a tenuous position and they worked really hard to get projects. People want property tax reform. And, but if any of you watched the debate, I was out of the country and I had, because of time changes, I actually got to watch all day Monday meetings and all day Tuesday meetings on the same day. It was joyful watching committee meetings at 2 o'clock in the morning. They realized there are going to be some changes to help address this issue in the spring.
Yeah, okay, I think we're all going to have a lot of questions in the next several weeks and months. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I appreciate
You're
on a high level view, but...
Yes, I'm moving on quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. Water management district bills, this failed. This was a priority of President Albritton. I believe every time Doug Manson was on Governor Scott's transition team where they looked at how water management districts operated, I believe we will see something with the new governor. It may not be 2027 session, it may be 2028 session on water management districts. Special districts, we're still trying to get something passed that would help related to different operations of special districts. I'm going to skip that one. Again, there's an effort to try to make it cheaper for local governments to publish meeting notices. The big one I want to point out, because the member who filed this is not coming back, but this is a big deal. Public records, right now there's not a requirement. You have to promptly respond that you got a request, but there's no time limit. It just has to be reasonable. Certain governments, I have one in front of a government. It took me about 9 months to get the records. There is going to be an effort to ratchet down on local governments on how quickly they can provide those documents. So that was a lot, and I know property tax is the big issue. Water was not the big issue this session. I do believe we are going to start seeing that change because development is not stopping in Florida. We're having more and more environmental impacts from water constraints. Water will become a bigger issue moving forward, I believe, at the legislature. And I know it, with a couple of the people running for governor, environment's going to be a big issue.
Okay, well, covered a lot of topics.
Yes.
And a lot going on, and I think we're just starting to feel the impact of that and wondering what it means for us, so I appreciate the updates. Thank you for your work. Any comments, questions?
I just wanted the board to know that Ms. Donaldson came back from the Maldives to be here for our meeting this morning. And I want to say I appreciate that. And I know that you had never intended that your vacation would occur when special session was going on, and she managed to stay completely in touch with it and give us a great summary. We appreciate that, Laura.
Yes, it was very interesting talking to legislators when I was 10 hours ahead during the special session, but we all suspected it was going to happen in July, but I appreciate it. I mean, it just never ends. This is, I know you're a special district, the Peace River, I represent a lot of special districts around the state where there are no other revenue sources except for ad valorem, and the impacts are dramatic, and these are public safety, so it was something that was very important. And I appreciate that I get to still be your lobbyist, even with the firm restructuring, because Doug and I were talking, I think I started lobbying for the authority about 20 years ago.
You were a mere child, yes.
If only that was true. But thank you so much for your indulgence.
All right, thank you for the report. All right, moving on to item number 4, interconnect water charge update. And Mr. Anderson, I believe, just a brief presentation on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Richard Anderson. And I believe Laura was 12 when she started off. Get that on the record. Item 4 is a follow-up to the discussion that we had at the April board meeting on the interconnect water charge. If you recall, the interconnect water charge is the rate that we set for any non-authority members or customers that want to buy water from the authority. Sorry. There we go. Just a quick background as a reminder of what we talked about in April. This is part of the annual budget process. The interconnect rate had not been updated since the 2014 budget. It had been set at $3.30 since that time, basically because we had never used that rate, never sold any water to any non-authority customers. As you recall, at the April discussion, we do have a request from the city of Punta Gorda to possibly purchase some water over the next 5 years, which this board approved. Thank you very much. The consensus at the April meeting was to include the interconnect charge at $4.06, which is the same rate that we charge you in the water redistribution pool. However, the consensus was to allow this board time to talk to your individual boards and get consensus from your respective boards to make sure that they were in agreement on this rate. And I know there was some discussion at Charlotte County. I'm not sure that any other boards had discussions on this rate at all, but we wanted to provide you the opportunity to comment and address this one more time before we bring the final budget back to you. As you recall, the rates that we presented in April were, again, the rate of $4.06, which is the same rate we charge on our pool water rate, and then various options ratcheting it up to 150% of that rate, which would be $6.09. This was a snapshot of what you did approve in the tentative budget back in April. As you can see, we have tentatively set, obviously, the $4.06 for the rate, and then the conservation rate would be double that at $8.12. So at this time, I think that there's no motion unless the board chooses to discuss this and change that rate, but I just wanted to provide this information, allow the board a chance to comment on this, and reaffirm that this is the rate we want to put in the final budget come August.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've had a discussion on this. I think we were in agreement. Commissioner DeSoto, did you have any further comments on it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we had a board discussion about it, and we were okay with the numbers.
I spoke to our utilities director. We agree this is a fair number, so I think this should just move forward. We don't need a motion on this then?
No, sir, not unless you want to change that number. Correct.
We're good with it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I just would like to, just one final slide here. This is the slide or the sheet we're going to put in the final budget. As you can see, we've added some language there in red that allows the staff to change this rate annually as part of the budget process. Basically, we would ratchet this number up to a number that's equal to the restructure or the pool water rate. So it would basically match the pool water rate every year, unless directed otherwise by the board. So,
Mr. Chair. Thank you. But it wouldn't be less.
correct. It would be the same as the pool water rate.
Yeah.
Correct.
So no, I mean the 406. If it can be moved over the next years, I guess is what you're saying, as that's calculated annually. Can that rate change?
It would change. Let's say the pool rate goes to $4.10, then it would follow suit.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, let's move on to our general counsel's report.
I have nothing new to report.
Thank you. Executive director's report.
Nothing to know, sir.
All right, with that, we have routine status reports. Those are in our package, and so everybody's got updated on that. I'll move to board member comments. Commissioner Langford.
I have none, sir.
Commissioner Toussaint?
I have nothing, sir.
Mr. Shea?
Nothing, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm good as well. So, anything further? I have no cards, no public comment here. Okay, with that, been a good meeting. Thank you for the updates. And let's see, our next meeting is Wednesday, August 5th at the Charlotte County Administration Center. I'm actually leaving here and going to get into our new admin facility for the first time this afternoon. It's not completely open yet, but we're getting into our offices, and I guess later in the year we'll have one of our meetings in our new facility. December as well. So we'll get to that. All right, thank you to Host County. Today is National Donut Day, by the way, and I understand that if you go to one of the donut shops, they're giving away free donuts, so enjoy a donut today. And with that, we're dismissed.
That is true, but you got about $12 cup of coffee. To get you donuts.
One signature right there. It's the meeting minutes.
Elton, for you. You did good, Elton. I did. You did good. I saw you turning red though a little bit.